this document is a Bill of Rights for the city of Pineapple. Okay, so this is not a PD Bill of Rights. You will actually see some of the things inside of this document that completely, not completely, but just make it fair across the board. Okay. Um, this publication, it states that the accessibility of publication is available through Discord. That's actually going to change. It's going to be available online on our government website. Um, publication can only remain within the Pineapple government. If you see it elsewhere, please bring it up to open a ticket and bring it up to the community manager Fink. Sorry. This publication outlines the Bill of Rights of the City of Pineapple. It establishes the basic rights for all members of the city. This document is second to the U.S. Constitution, which means the Constitution is held above all. Okay, so your Fourth Amendment, your Fifth Amendment, all that stuff is still intact, and it's still being utilized. It applies to all members actively assigned to or operating in an attached capacity with the City of Pineapple's legal system. So this means all court cases, any government or not government, but any legal system, meaning the LSPD, any laws. This trumps any law written in our penal code and our let's see, our SOP. Okay. The city laws come before this document. The U.S. Constitution comes before this document. So if you see anything that's in this document and it contradicts any city laws or anything in the Constitution, you are to disregard it and go directly off of the city laws or the Constitution. Does that make sense? Any questions on that end?
Nope. Negative.
Okay.
Nope, negative.
Any changes or questions about this publication, I need you to open a ticket and speak with government directly. If you see anything in here that might be an error or something that does contradict, this is the first time it's being published. We've had government skim through it. We've also had myself and Doug and DJ and different people look through this to look for any flaws. We've gone over it so many times, but everybody can make mistakes. So if you see something, please point it out. This is the right step forward. We believe in the direction of the city. It makes it fair. It all the gray areas that were in the rules and within the SOP and the penal code are now black and white. If there is anything that you can think of that needs to be added to it, also please reach out in the same manner. All right, so we'll go to chapter 1. There are 5 chapters. I'm only going to go over 4. Chapter 1 being the smallest. Chapter 5 is for our detective unit. As you can see, it's about raids. That doesn't directly affect you until we get to the point, and you'll receive a full debrief on what we're doing anyway. So this document will be available publicly, so you can go back and read the raid section for your personal knowledge. However, today, to shorten up the training because we want to get back out there on the streets, we're not going over chapter 5. All right, chapter 1, the founder's vision. This just basically states again that this is a legal document that's trumped any policies, any SOP policies. This document trumps in a court of law. It levels the playing field, so we're not just using California Penal Code. We're using this in reference to our LSPD Penal Code, but this comes first. All right. City rules comes first. We already talked about that. So chapter 2. Basic rights. Basic rights that are defined as freedoms in which all humans are considered to be entitled to, right? So life, liberty, equality, fair trial, etc. We're going to go through what some of those common basic rights are. Life, liberty, equality, that's obvious, but the more in-depth ones are right to a fair trial. So a trial that is conducted fairly and justly with an impartial judge, and it's underneath the appropriate constitution or other laws. You're afforded your rights as per our penal code, which will also be a public document that will be posted on the website as well. So citizens can now view the penal code, whereas before they could not. We'll go over the penal code after this. If you wish to make a lawsuit, you must submit a lawsuit to the court within 48 hours of the time of the event. So if something happens and you, as an officer, need to submit a lawsuit, you have 48 hours from that event. Otherwise, that event is null and void, and you cannot open up a lawsuit. Statute of limitations for that event is 48 hours. So if something happens, throw up a thing into the Discordia in contact for a lawyer. Fill out your form, and that starts your time for your lawsuit. Right to a speedy trial. This is really important, especially in the city with a court system that drags ass, right? So we're trying to put pressure on the lawyer system and the justice system to move faster. All citizens have a right to a speedy trial in which their case will be reviewed by a lawyer or public defender within a timely manner. We're still sketching out some things with public defender, so ignore that section there. We currently don't have a public defender. You have to hire a lawyer. No case should take longer than 30 days in most circumstances. You have to remember that the lawyers are not whitelisted, so these some cases are pro bono if they lose the case or they get a very small cut. Right to the lawyer, right to a lawyer. So all citizens will have the right to a lawyer if they can afford one. Um, in your Miranda rights, we want to make it really important that you're not offering up a free lawyer. So you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say or do can be used against you in a court of law. You have the right to an attorney. If you cannot afford one may be appointed to you if available by the state. Okay. You have to add that if available, or just take that whole last part out if you can't afford one. 2.2.4.2, after being taken to the police station. This is important, and this is important for everyone who's writing their reports and booking a suspect. A lawyer will have up to 10 minutes to arrive after the arrested suspect reaches out on both Yellow Pages or Discordia or Twitter or whatever they need to contact their lawyer. If you have a preference to a lawyer, they have to be able to make the phone call and attempt to contact their lawyer. You have they're entitled to speak with their lawyer after they arrive for a total of 10 minutes. So you're talking about your booking taking an extra 20 minutes if they have a lawyer available. This 20 minutes does not go against their time served, and they have to understand that if they request a lawyer. You need to let them know, as long as it takes your lawyer to get here, he has 10 minutes, but if it takes less than that, you're adding this on to your time in jail. It does not change. Okay. The purpose of calling a lawyer is for them to be able to talk to the lawyer and understand their rights while they're being booked and sentenced, right? So this doesn't mean that you get into an argument match with the lawyer on why you're charging something. You can talk to the lawyer, and the lawyer can inform you that, hey, per section 2.5 of the Bill of Rights, you can't charge them for that, or you don't have enough evidence based on this to charge them for this charge. And they can just give you that reality check, like, hey, you're about to fuck up and it's going to be a lawsuit. It's on your ass if you move forward. And that's the purpose of having a lawyer in the jail cells. Okay. So the lawyer will then will text PD when they arrive on scene of Mission Row, and we will escort them to a room, one of the investigation rooms, where they can have a seat with their client and talk freely without a police officer being in that room. Okay. Everybody clear on that point? Because that's actually really important.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Clear.
I'll take silence as an agreement. If you have any questions, please speak up.
I actually have a
Right.
question.
Go ahead.
So when it comes to the lawyer, so they're there. What happens if they try and make a kind of deal with us there? What do we do then? Like if they come and say,
You can
"Oh, can you do this for my suspect?" I talk to
Right.
them.
Yeah. And it's up to you. You know what you're charging your suspect for. And if you are confident that you have all the documentation necessary for that, then you move forward with that move. The lawyer can just suggest things to you that they would like in reference to their client. But again, this isn't a trial. This isn't the lawyer pleading a case. This is a lawyer saying, hey, I don't think you really have the right probable cause to have searched that. So if you would like, you can drop their sentence by X, Y, and Z, and we won't take this up in a court of law, right? So that's the purpose of the lawyer being there. Is in my understanding, I would appreciate that if a lawyer points it out before I fuck it up, right? It can cause chaos, especially if we have lawyers that don't know the law, in which you have to sit there and let them know, you're incorrect, and they're going to be booked for X, Y, and Z. Your time is up. Make sure you're keeping tabs of their time so that we don't have lawyers sitting in there for 30, 45 minutes, because that's going to ruin the RP for everyone else, right? So there's time limits. Make sure you are in charge. The lawyer will try to get by and get more time out of you if you allow it. But our limit is 10 minutes to contact them. Once they're on site, that 10-minute starts. So it's not 20 minutes in total. If it takes them 2 minutes to get there, they still only have 10 minutes to talk to their client. Got it?
Also,
Yes, thank you.
just because they think that you shouldn't be charging with that, and if you know you're right, then you don't have to listen to them.
Correct. Yeah, it's just a suggestion. So everything that you're speaking with the lawyer, You know, the lawyer knows what they're going to do once they leave there if they don't get what they want for their client, right? So if the lawyer says you didn't have enough this, that, and the other, the lawyer already knows if I'm leaving here and there was no cooperation, I'm going straight to a trial and I'm going to open up a case immediately. So just know that it's going to help speed up different cases because lawyers are going to accept the case faster to be in the city and on site, right? So that was the purpose of adding that in there. Right to self-defense. This is important for you guys too. Listen to this. You have the right to defend your land and assets, including vehicles. You may use reasonable force to defend such property. If in this defense you are forced to use a deadly weapon but have no permit for the said weapon, or it's an illegal firearm, you will still be charged as such for those criminal offenses. So if you show up to a scene and they claim self-defense, there's got to be significant evidence that it was self-defense, right? So not just the criminal's perspective, but maybe some bystanders, right? Ask certain witnesses, and if you come to a conclusion that it was self-defense, these are the statutes right here. They have a right to self-defense. Okay, so don't charge them for brandishing or whatever you have because they can use this against you in the court of law, right?
I got a question on that.
Yep.
Is shooting and killing someone reasonable force to defend their car? A human life to a vehicle?
Right. So if the defense, so that kind of answers it in the next section. If in this defense you are forced to use a deadly weapon, you know, you still have that right to defend your assets. I mean, it's black and white. So even if it is just a car or whatever, it's their personal asset, it's their vehicle, it's their property. So they have the right to defend it. And if that means taking someone else's life because they feel threatened, it's kind of like your SOP for deadly force. Then if you come to a conclusion there's significant evidence on scene to prove that this was self-defense, then they're bound by the Bill of Rights to not be charged for that murder.
Okay, very clear.
Understood. All right. No unfair detainment. This one's crucial for you guys as well. No citizen should be detained or arrested without probable cause of committing a crime. That we know what the probable cause definition is. If you don't, it's a reasonable suspicion that a crime has been committed. Citizens can be detained for safety or investigative purposes if they are on scene of the crime. Please mute your mic for me. Somebody is hot micing. All right. Once being arrested, it is the officer's duty to properly impound any vehicle on scene of the crime. If you don't impound the vehicle and it gets chopped, we will be responsible now, according to the Bill of Rights,
we announced you were
for
going
the
to go
whole
up a
value of
channel
that
and y'all
chopped
ignored
vehicle,
us.
right?
Okay,
So
yeah, well,
they
there's
can
a lot of
sue
talking
us
going on
for the
in
value of their
LSPD, didn't
vehicle because we didn't
Alrighty,
follow the Bill of
Philly.
Rights.
Well, yeah, we're
Okay,
good. We're
it's
just
also
up
in
a
our
channel.
SOP. You have to impound the vehicles.
If you need
What
us,
I
we're up
would
a channel, alright?
suggest is
Alright,
calling Benny's
Alright, see you,
and
fella.
putting that liability on Benny's. Document it in your report who showed up to take care of that vehicle, and if it gets chopped after you leave the scene from that incident, that Benny's employee will be responsible for whatever happens after that. Okay. Stop and identify statute. This one's important because we have a lot of this in the city right now. So this statute authorizes any trained law enforcement officer in the city of Los Santos to ask for you to provide identification to them if they have a reasonable suspicion to you that you have committed a crime. Okay, so this isn't an argument with the suspect. If you think they've committed a crime, you ask for them to identify, and if they don't, we have a charge on the penal code, failure to identify, right? Refusing a lawful command. If you think that they have committed a crime, you don't have to prove to them of your reasonable suspicion. You just have to have it for legal purposes during a lawsuit, right? So we're going to open up that report and we're going to want to see what your reasonable suspicion was to stop them and ask them for their identification. So if you walk up to Legion Square and no crime has been committed, you can't force somebody to give you their ID, right? That's the same thing that Doug was just talking about the F6 menu powers. You can't just walk up to somebody and grab their ID out of their pocket and they don't know, okay? It's now against the Bill of Rights and we can be sued. All right, if an officer asks you to leave a scene, you must comply, step back to where they would like you to stand. Before, it was just very simple, leave the scene, leave the scene. Now, people are going to want to, record stuff or document stuff. We're okay with that, but they need to stand in a safe area, and you are responsible for telling them where they need to stand. If you don't give them an opportunity to stand where you want them to stand, you can't charge them with obstruction of justice because they won't leave the scene. Okay? If you don't want them to stand anywhere, tell them leave the scene completely. You have to leave the scene 100%. Or if you're going to stay here, please stand over here out of the way so that you're safe, right? All right. Stop and frisk orders. This one's important. We just went through a whole bunch of stuff with this one. So a stop and frisk is defined as an action in which LSPD will stop all individuals affiliated with a certain organization in search of a person or illegal contraband. So a stop and frisk can only be issued when said organization commits multiple felonies in one day. So don't request a stop and frisk from your commissioner team unless this is met. Okay, so we'll look at our penal code and we'll see what general felonies and serious felonies fall underneath this. And if they commit multiple of these, which means more than one in one day, then they can have a stop and frisk order initiated on their organization. Citizens have the right to know when a stop and frisk order has been issued and lifted. So citizens will be notified via yellow pages. This is new. Before, it was a unknown fact. If you were part of an organization, you didn't know if you had a stop and frisk, and you didn't know if it was up or not. And that's a big conundrum because you're stuck in that situation if you're in that organization. And also, if the suspect's already been caught and we haven't lifted it yet, the organization can say, hey, look, you guys already got what you were searching for. Get rid of the stop and frisk, right? They can hold us accountable to that. All right, so be careful when we initiate these commissioner team, and if you're requesting one, make sure that the criteria is met first. Any questions on chapter 2 before we moved into chapter 3?
I actually have another one.
Go ahead.
So I believe I don't know. Is there like you were saying when you ask them to leave the scene, if they don't, what is there a certain fine you can give them if they refuse
Yeah,
to
obstruction of
leave?
justice and
Obstruction of
refusing a
justice.
lawful command. Yep.
Okay.
All right. And you'll see once I go to the penal code, it's not like before. So before, Johnson, do we have a copy of the before penal code? See if you can find that, because I want to show people the difference. I don't think they understand the
I think
complexity
I
of
might
this.
have it.
Give me, if you can, just pull it up and share it with everybody in LSPD chat. You can do it now, and then we'll go to it later. All right, questions on chapter 2. We're gonna move to chapter 3. Once,
Do we leave
twice.
the people in soft
I
cuffs
have a
when they're
quick
talking
question.
to the lawyer?
Yes. So answer the soft cuff question. You can take them out of cuffs. They're in a green zone, right? They're in green grass, and they're complying with you to have the opportunity to speak to their lawyer, right? They have the right to speak to them. You can take the cuffs off of them when the lawyer is present. If they're being combative and they're not cooperative, you can leave the cuffs on and have them in soft cuffs while they're inside of that. Okay. So that's up to you, and it's case by case. That's why it's not in the Bill of Rights, because it just
Okay,
depends.
Chris,
okay, I want you to answer
I'm
one more
sharing.
thing here.
Okay.
Okay, so if they call, so suppose you arrested a Don member, right? And if they bring their friend in a suit saying that they are lawyers, so how would our other officers? I mean, obviously I know who the lawyers are, but how they gonna know who the lawyer are? Like if that person's actually a lawyer or not?
Or phone numbers.
Yeah.
Lawyer phone
It's
numbers.
in
So you
Discord,
guys
yeah.
gotta check in the Discord.
Yep, you've got to check in Discord to make sure that they're a reputable lawyer to enter the premises. We're not just letting any Joe Schmo walk up in there and try to negotiate shit. It's got to be a real bona fide lawyer. Okay. Look at Johnson's screen real quick, or look at mine. I'm mirroring his, whatever. But this is our old penal code, right? I mean, everybody's probably already seen this before, but if you can scroll down, it tells you just the so basic stuff on what you need to know to book somebody, but it doesn't define what each charge is. So we'll go over that next. We need to talk about chapter 3 when we move past this. Any questions? Chapter 2. There was one more.
Yeah. Quick question. When we
Yep.
go to impound a vehicle and it's scuffed and there's no bennies, what do we do then?
Johnson.
Send it up.
Yeah, send it up. Have a admin come DV it.
And if it's no admins?
Then you
Then
document it.
document that thoroughly.
Okay.
Okay, and let the suspect know too. Let them know, like, look, man, I tried bennies, I tried myself, I tried sending it up. I'm gonna put it in the documentation. I can move it to the PD garage if you'd like after I book you, but this is everything that I've tried to do according to your rights, right? Because they have the right for you to do it. So
Yeah.
just make sure you're putting the effort, because if it does get taken to court, we need to show that we tried every avenue to get rid of that vehicle before it was chopped or whatever happened to it, right? Good question though. All right, armed robberies, bank protocols. This one is so important. If you're not paying attention, this is what I need you to pay attention to. This is why we're here, right here. Okay. Bank protocol. All criminals are granted 2 demands. We already know that. Subject to high command approval. We already know that. All demands are only valid for 15 minutes from leaving the bank. After 15-minute grace period, the demands will be canceled and robbers will be pursued at all force. So that means that if they request no Air 1 after that 15 minutes, we're pulling out Air 1. If they don't have a vehicle that goes over 200 miles per hour and you don't have an intercept on scene, after 15 minutes, you get that damn intercept out so we can get the suspect in custody or end the scene altogether. If they haven't lost us in 15 minutes, everybody agrees, even the city during our survey that we released, that enough is enough. Okay, if they take it longer than 15 minutes, they're dipping into other people's time to RP on similar scenarios, right? Our city is too busy. You already know how many banks we get back to back to be on a chase for more than 15 minutes. So that's why this law is in effect now. It's the LSPD's responsibility to keep track of that 15 minutes. So whoever is the scene command needs to communicate 15 minutes from now is this time. At this time, all demands are broken. Okay. LSPD is obligated to uphold. Yes.
So if I chase someone more than 15 minutes, lethal are authorized, am I correct?
No. No. Just their demands. Just their
Dang it,
demands.
Snow.
So if
Easy,
they say
Snow.
Snow, if they say fair chase, no Air 1 after 15 minutes, you don't have to give them a fair chase and you don't have to leave Air 1 out. You can bring Air 1 in. Does that make sense?
But not kill suspect, am I
Nope.
correct?
Nope. Yeah, no, that's against the law, Snow.
So,
All right.
real fast, Cross, if you don't mind.
Yep.
Please be fair with this, because I know that 15 minutes you think, oh, this takes forever, and you bump it down to 10. Please don't do that. If you have to, pull a timer up on your computer, pull on your phone, something to,
Yep.
make it fair
So
for
if the
them.
criminal can prove in a court of law that their 15-minute grace period was not met, then you're screwed. And that's how it will be fair. The criminals will also be keeping track of their time because this 15 minutes is crucial for them, right?
And the 15
So
minutes starts as soon as they get on their vehicle, correct?
as soon as they get in their vehicle and they take off, that's it. It starts then. Okay.
So pretty much,
I-
don't just guess. Make sure you
Yeah,
Yes,
make
know
sure
for the
you're
fact.
right. And if you start the chase and you haven't started the timer, then it starts from when you realize you didn't start it. You don't just say, "Oh, I think we've been going for 5 minutes, so now they have 10 minutes left," right? If you don't have it strictly written down on what time you started this chase, then you need to start it from that point forward, and their 15 minutes starts then, not from when they left. Does that make sense? You've
Just
got to be
for
fair.
official clarification,
Yes.
the 15 minutes start when the bank robbery ends or when they get in their car.
When they get in their vehicle.
Sometimes they're in there for like
Yeah, I know.
forever. I
When
feel
they
like.
when they take off from the scene, when they get in their vehicle and they hit their accelerator and you start to move, as soon as the wheels move, you're starting that timer.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay? Because it's talking about their chase. So the chase doesn't start until they leave, right? So it's only valid for their chase, all right, not the scene.
Okay.
LSPD is obligated to uphold both demands from negotiation unless criminals commit a serious felony during the pursuit of or the 15-minute grace period is over. What this means is unless they get out and shoot, and we'll go over the section for serious felonies, but unless they get out and commit a serious felony, you cannot break their demands. You cannot end their demands unless the 15-minute grace period is up or they commit a serious felony. Which means if they say no, if they don't request no repair and they go get one anyways, so be it. You can't break the demands on that. You just failed to block off the repairs. That's your fault, right? So if they didn't commit a serious felony, you cannot break the demands. And if you do, they will bring this up in a court of law and we will be sued by a bank robber. Okay? So let's keep our ducks in the row here.
Question.
Yes.
So if they don't have no repair and they go to a repair and they're in repair, are we allowed to shoot the tires out with the taser?
No,
Would that
we're
be-
not allowed.
no?
We're not
Okay.
allowed to shoot tires with tasers anymore from this point forward.
Oh, okay.
No more taser tires. That realistically, that's stupid, right? That doesn't happen IRL. A cop's not going to run up and taser tires. Okay. And then if you're shooting at their tire, that just opens up a whole nother can of worms for lethal force, right? So unless that
Yeah,
vehicle's
yeah.
coming at you, you're not supposed to discharge your weapon. So I would just leave their tires alone unless you're using spike strips. Does that clear that up?
Clear.
Yep,
Okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
What if they don't have outside help and they steal a local vehicle or something?
What about it?
Yeah, so that is not a serious
Yeah.
crime.
So their demands would still be valid for a 15-minute grace period.
Yeah, but they said no outside help, so
Oh
no
well,
outside
you
vehicle.
didn't stop them in time, right?
Therefore,
We got to get better. We got to get better at our jobs. We can't just use technicalities to protect us when chasing suspects. We need to get better, right?
If they said
So-
no outside help and then a car rolls up like one of their friends, that's a different story. Send it up to Gov with nothing we can do immediately about it.
Yeah. So because and we're going to get to that part, right? So the criminal must disclose, this is 3.1.2, the criminal must disclose if they have outside help and how much. They also must specify if the outside help is aquatic or land-based. This is a rule and it's a law, okay? So if they're not following it, they're breaking the law and the rules. Okay? So if they do that and they get outside help even though they specify clearly that there was no outside help, then you can send it up like he said. That's a whole different story, okay? But if they steal a local vehicle, that's not outside help, and that's just on you, right? You can't break their demands. They didn't commit a serious felony. GTA is not a serious felony.
Eat and
It's a
drink.
Doug's
misdemeanor.
dead.
Okay.
Eat
All
and
right.
drink.
Um,
Get his ID.
please make sure you're eating, guys. Doug,
Another
make
question.
sure you're eating.
This is more of a
Are we
strategic
gonna revive
question
Doug?
or strategy.
No, we'll leave him dead.
No, Doug is fine.
Okay.
He can revive himself.
Okay. All right.
I have one more
Yeah,
question.
we gotta move. It's 10:30. Go ahead with your question really quick.
So if they're getting repair and there's like two entrances, can we block both of them and spike both entrances so they can't leave? Is that allowed if they're getting a repair there, or?
They have to be able to leave, so you can't block it off with vehicles because that
Okay.
can seem kind of like power gamey, right?
Okay.
But there's nothing that says that you can't use spike strips. If they didn't use that as a demand, no spike strips,
You can place
because
them
you
where they
remember
say?
up here, safe
think what
passage
he meant-
definition is a safe direct path to your getaway vehicle, in which time authorities will not infringe on this safe passage by tasing, shooting, spiking, etc. Once they're in their vehicle and they get away, you can use spike strips if that wasn't part of their demands. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah. So.
All right.
So if they go
Perfect.
for a repair and that wasn't part of their demands, we can spike.
You can spike
strip
it.
the-
Yes.
Well, that's,
Okay.
that's good.
Yep. But if they say that they want a repair and you're just trying to end the chase, then you can get sued by them because you broke
Yeah.
their laws or their rights, right?
Yeah, because
Well,
we've
does
seen
that-
Alright.
people going for second repairs before, and it's kind of like a
Yeah,
tasing game.
yeah,
and-
exactly. You can get out and lay spikes. That's completely justified.
Okay.
Plug?
Thank you.
That brings up a separate issue against our SOP that we can't use spike strips within city limits.
Wait.
Where does it say that in the SOP?
Wait, right?
Yeah, I don't.
I thought it was in there. No.
No, you can definitely use spikes. That's not in the SOP.
Okay.
All right. All right. Let's see. They also must specify it's outside. I said that the authorities on scene of the robbery may not use more than 3 pursuit vehicles per getaway vehicle. The only time this may be broken if demands have been canceled or expired. So when you leave the scene, there should not be chasing 7 cop cars with one vehicle, right? That's asinine. We could be using that help somewhere else. Okay. We've been doing this, but now this is a law. This is a right for the suspect as well. So keep that in mind. If you're on a chase and you get the suspect, but they turn around and they see 5 cop cars, they can then sue the PD because they had more than 3 pursuit getaway vehicles within their 15-minute grace period. Keep that in mind. It's now getting to the point where it's no longer SOP. This is a right for the robber, right?
Does it matter how many people are in that vehicle?
Nope. Doesn't matter how many people are in the vehicle. It just matters how many vehicles are chasing that one vehicle. Okay. That's why it says 3 pursuit vehicles per getaway vehicle. So it doesn't say 3 police officers per getaway vehicle, right? You could have
No,
6
I
cops
mean
in
on
one
the
car.
suspect side, like if they've got 4 people in one vehicle, is it still 3?
Yeah.
Chasing?
Yeah, it's still 3. Yep, it's still 3. It's 3 pursuit vehicles for 1 getaway vehicle. So what happens is once they get out of their vehicle and they start their 1070, you can keep units around for when it turns into a 1070 and you need backup, right? Because they can get out. A 1070 has nothing to do with pursuit vehicles. The vehicles are now out of the question. There's 4 people on foot and you have 3 officers, right? You can call in for backup and you can get that other suspect with another unit that's close by. So we need to be more logistically aware, right? We need to stage our officers like, all right, we have 3 cop cars for this vehicle. Let's get Foxtrot 5 and Foxtrot 6 to sit down a block from this chase, and you can follow us through the city. Just you're not on this chase, right? So you're at a distance at all times in case we need backup or there's a 1099. You're available. But on this pursuit, there's only 3 pursuit vehicles per getaway vehicle. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Questions? Okay.
I have one quick question, another one.
Yep.
If we ask them to wait because we've got like another bank or something, and they say yeah they'll wait for us to get more cops, and then they leave, does that break their demands? Or nope?
Yes.
No, it
No,
does
if they're
not.
not waiting for you, I mean, if you give them the demands, right? They ask for it and they don't wait for your approval, that you didn't agree with their demands, then they don't have the demands. If that's what you're asking.
No, so sometimes we tell them, do you mind waiting like an extra 2 minutes after the bank's hit because we've got another back-to-back and there's not 12 cops on. And some of them will
Well,
wait,
then you
but
should
some
have,
won't.
then
They'll
you
just
should
say
be putting
yes.
it up. If
Technically,
there's
they
not
don't.
12 cops,
But
you know.
it's not fair to them because we're ruining their RP and their time because we're not prepared.
I get what he's
Yeah.
saying. He's
So if there's
talking
not
about
12
that.
cops on and there's second bank, you can send it up. You don't have to entertain that bank, but if you choose to entertain, then they don't have to wait for you, you know.
Yep, got it.
Yep.
I also want to throw in there real quick. If there is enough officers to respond to it, whether there's 12 or not on, then don't send it up.
Yeah.
If we have enough officers that are like responding to other calls and patrolling, go respond to that bank. That's priority over patrolling.
Yep. All right. Authorities must match vehicle to vehicle. This one's important. This means that if the getaway vehicle is not off-road, then you must not be using an off-road vehicle. So if you show up to a chase because you know your dirt bike goes 250, that's against the Bill of Rights now, right? So if the vehicle does not go off-road, you should not be using a pursuit vehicle that goes off-road. Same thing when it comes to the 200 mile per hour vehicles. If it doesn't exceed 200, then you shouldn't be on the scene with the 200 mile per hour vehicle.
Does that mean we can't show up in an Explorer if they've got road vehicles only?
No, that's a different story. You can have I guess that is a good question though, but if it's specifically an off-road pursuit vehicle is what I mean. More so their dirt bikes is what this applies to, because a lot of people show up to the scene with a dirt bike because they know that the dirt bikes are OP and they go 250 for a dirt bike is unrealistic, but that's what's in our city, right?
I had a question about that actually.
Yep.
Sorry. With that being said, because the MBUs have the dirt bike as well as the Kawasaki, if let's say the people at the bank have like just 2 stretch bikes, would that mean MBU would have to swap to all Kawasaki's or just like keep their dirt bikes because there are bikes at the bank?
Nope.
And the stretch
If
bike's
it's not
not an
off-road,
off-road. Okay.
yeah, if it's not off-road, then you shouldn't have your dirt bike out. So if
Alright,
it's a stretch bike, then you need the Kawasaki, or you need a land vehicle that will
Okay.
go that whatever mile per hours. And a lot of people, there's different bikes. If you don't know if the bike goes over 200, then it's your problem, right? Not theirs. So do with that information as you must. But if you know the vehicle goes over 200, you can even request. I mean, it's your demand. You're in control of the demands, right? So if they are claiming that the vehicle doesn't go over 200, you can request that if they want their demands met, then you take that vehicle down the road to test it to see if it goes over 200, right? So if it goes over 200, then that falls under, then you can say, okay, well, you allowed me to do that. Your demands are on. It doesn't exceed 200. Now we can properly give you your right of having no intercept on scene, right?
Okay, so no PD dirt bikes are allowed on stretch bike chase.
Correct. Correct.
Okay.
Question though.
What's up with the Kawasaki certification? Because a lot of us are MBU certified, but none of us are actually Kawasaki certified.
I was about to say the same thing.
So then get Kawasaki certified. Speak to the off-road SPU or whatever they're called now. Are they called SPU? Especially pursuit units?
Okay, I was just wondering
SRT?
because a
Whatever,
lot of the
SRT.
cars chase the stretch bikes because they go through the choke points and stuff, and we
Yep.
can't fit through with the vehicles.
Yeah. So get certified. Make that a priority so that you can get certified. There's tons of us on tonight, so you just have to make that a priority. If that's going to be one of your complaints, then you have to find every way to, you know, get
What
out of
if
that.
their outside help is faster than 200, and now we don't have an intercept vehicle to chase?
Or
Ask them.
their outside help is off-road based, and now we don't have any dirt bikes to chase off-road.
I mean, if they have
15 minutes, I think.
if they
right?
have outside help, then I don't see any problem with you using any off-road vehicle as a backup.
Yeah, a backup, meaning what I was talking about earlier with they're further away from the scene, right? So talk to the negotiations and see if you can get that out of them. If you can't, then just have it on standby. Have an intercept ready and have an off-road ready, right?
At
10-4.
And
least,
if they
go ahead.
and if they end up pulling an off-road out, the thing is we can't always use an off-road just in case their outside help has an off-road, right? That's not fair. Okay, so this needs to be more fair. We need to be smarter. We have the assets to make it happen. We just need to make sure that we're calling in the whatever you
So
need.
can we change it to where when we ask for outside help, if we could like say, is it land-based, off-road, or
So
aquatic? Because
You can
that's
ask them.
you can ask them, but as the point I was going to make, if we can prove within the court of law that we attempted to make sure that like if they had outside vehicles or not, and if they didn't give us that information, we'd be covered. The Bill of Rights wouldn't go there because we attempted and they didn't give us the information that we needed.
Yep, and we need to move on. So if you have any more questions about that, stay
Yep.
after. Liability of death. No citizen can be liable for the death of anyone unless it's proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that that citizen physically committed the murder themselves or conspired to commit it. So read these sections because these are important when it talks about booking your suspects for like store robberies. For instance, the next section is no citizen can be liable to pay or serve time for repercussions of individuals that have been murdered by someone else during the commission of a crime. So when we go over the penal code, I'll show you the different sections of accessory to murder that you can charge instead of murder. All right. This is about responding to drug calls. So these are important. You've got to make sure that you understand the probable cause behind it. I'm not going to go through each one. You can open this up or you can get in touch with DOA and they can let you know what your probable cause is, but this is important to know. It lets you know who you can stop and in what scenario. So a lot
I'm
of
still
times we
locked up.
search people that we're not really allowed to search, and this is protecting them. So just know that if you search them and you're not allowed to, they can now sue you in a court of law. All right, this section's about raids. We're not going to go over that. Any questions so far about Bill of Rights?
Yep.
negative.
Yep, go ahead.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, what if they said no outside help, no outside vehicle, but they stole an off-road vehicle? They steal it from the street.
Yeah, we just
Then
answered that. You have to be ready. Have someone on backup ready to go with an off-road. And if there's not any officers on at that time, then they get away from you. I mean, that's just, it's not the end of the world. We don't always have to get the W all the time, right?
Yep, yep.
So just do your best. Do your best. If you come to this conclusion that they have decided to not be fair, then just do away with it. It's not going to be worth your time, right? Do everything you can to your powers to protect their rights and follow your SOP. That's all we're asking.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Wait, what about if it's the opposite way around? Like if we're chasing an off-road with an off-road and then they jump into like an on-road vehicle, do we have to go and switch or can we still
Nope.
chase them?
Nope. If they start the chase with an off-road, you're clear to have that the whole chase. Period.
Okay, cool.
Yep. Because it's not realistic to do that, right? You can't switch mid chase just because they change up every time. It's whatever's on scene at that time that you're making your decision off of, right?
okay.
All right, we're going to start training on penal code if nobody else has any questions about Bill of Rights. So first step is your page 1 of your penal code revocations of licenses. This also talks about our max fine and aggravating factors. So aggravating factors is more so people caught with the audacity to sell in green zones like pillbox or PD, right? You can increase their max sentence and their max fine twofold. So you can charge them twice with the charge if they're doing something as ridiculous as selling in a green zone, right? Or using a weapon within a green zone. You can max their sentence out, but like we stated before, 30 months is your max sentence. So if the charge is 30, then you can't double that. Does that make sense? Okay. Extra heinous crimes, 140 CS. That's commissioner approved only. Commissioner team, which means deputy commissioners can also approve that. Criminal history, it goes in charge with their revocations of licenses. You can't revoke a license without commissioner's team approval, meaning deputy commissioners as well. You can message us on Discordia if we're not in the city. You just need our permission to put in your report on why you revoked it. All right, so your citations, speeding, it's now everything is defined. Everything's black and white. There's what you're charging for. If it doesn't meet this definition, then you are no longer charging for that crime, right? On here, you'll see driver's license, motorcycle license, and weapons license. If it's not able to be suspended for the crime that they've committed, you leave it intact, meaning you don't touch it, right? Notice that all citations are not community service anymore, and no longer you can jail them for any regular citation. TCD is traffic control device, if you're wondering. I'm going to skim through these because citations isn't really what I want to go over. It's more so the serious and general felonies. But you get the outline because moving forward, I'm going to point out some things. Just know your rows and your columns here. Driver's license, suspension, motorcycle, and weapons license. Notice what these mean and what they come up to. Like if they're over 100 miles per hour, they'll be charged in your F6 menu with a $500 fine, and then with commissioner approval, you can revoke their license, right? It's
So no
considered
more
felony.
jail time for felony speed?
Correct, no more jail time, but you can revoke their license. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Okay. Felony means probable cause. You can search their vehicle. Felony, the word felony, speeding, felony gives you PC to search them. So remember that too. General misdemeanors, this is where your sentencing starts coming into play. Assault, vandalism, these are all normal. Obstruction of justice, failure to comply or identify, false information to police officers, verbal threats, all of this is already in your MDT, all of it's already in your F6. You no longer have the ability to see in your F6 menu what a charge can be sent away for. You have to pull up your penal code. And this is on purpose. This is to get you to look at the definition of what you're about to charge them for and make sure that it's legally bound, right? That in a court of law, I can read this definition and prove that they did that crime, and then I didn't charge them more than the jail time in question. All right. We are not giving time served for paying fines or good RP for the first couple of months while we do this new penal code, because I want it to be strictly based off of what the penal code states, okay? So you shouldn't say, okay, obstruction of justice is your only charge. I'm going to give you 6 months just because you've been really cooperative. No, we're giving them 10 because that's what our penal code states. And that's how we're operating that. Does anybody have any questions on that? No? Okay.
Can
So
you
no discretion on this is what we're saying.
No discretion on the new penal code for right now.
Okay.
can you
Okay, we need to get in the habit of knowing what these fines are supposed to be booked for, and the only way to do that is to open it up and read it. The only way to do that is repetitive. It takes 21 times to make a habit, so you need to be opening this up, and the only way to do that is if you're not creating some random number in your head saying, oh yeah, it's just because you've been cooperative. No, I want you to open this up, read the definition, and book what it states to book for.
Can you clarify on that with max time and then the murder
Yep.
charge?
Yep. Once we get to serious felonies, we'll specify.
Okay.
So we only
Nuisance
book the
misdemeanors?
jail time. Oh, sorry, go on.
No, go ahead. What?
So we only book the jail time for the highest jail time if they've committed multiple offenses. We don't
No,
add them
so
up.
if you open your SOP when you're booking somebody, it's the max, it's the highest one, and then 5 additional months per other charge. So if they have robbing a bank, fleeing to elude, and kidnapping of a suspect, you would go to robbery of a bank, which is 15 months, and then you would do 5 for kidnapping and 5 for fleeing to elude, right? So that's 25 that you need to sentence them for. Does that make sense? You go with the highest one and you add 5 for
Yep.
every additional charge. Up to 30 months. You can't go over 30. But
So
if it
here's
gets up to 30, then you're giving them 30, right? Does that make sense? Questions?
So 30 is like life, pretty much.
Yeah, 30 is your max jail time that you're allowed to give them. Life sentence is considered the 140 CS, and that's for heinous crimes.
Gotcha.
All right, nuisance misdemeanors: inciting a riot, participating in a riot, unlawful assembly, disturbing the peace, indecent exposure. This one's new. Walking around in their underwear is considered indecent exposure. And if you see anybody in there, it's 5 months in jail and a $500 fine. Straight up. The only thing that's discretion is community or jail time. That's your
Yes.
only discretion. Okay. Because you'll see as we get into more serious fines, community is not even on the list. Okay. So if they've been cooperative, you can give them 20 months in community instead of 10 months in jail. All right. Misuse of the government public traffic radio frequencies or hotlines. This is someone that's spamming us with text messages or inappropriate things via calling us so many times for non-crimes just to get us out of the area or something. That's the fine that you would use that for. Everything else you know the definition to. Vehicular charges. Operating vehicle without a license. Reckless operation of road or marine vehicle, impeding traffic, driving while impaired, street competition, which is racing and such. Hit and run is a new charge. Make sure you read the definition on that. That one's pretty clear. Causing an accident that results in property damage. But if they hit and run and they kill somebody, then that would be involuntary manslaughter, right? So that's another charge that we have under the serious felonies. Make sure you understand that. There's also felony hit and run, which is causing an accident that results in a bodily injury, then failing to attempt to exchange identifying details for the parties involved. These definitions are very clear. So this would be added to the involuntary manslaughter charge. All right, fleeing to elude and felony public endangerment. Grand Theft Auto. Notice how these can be revoked. If somebody steals a car, you can revoke their driver's license now with commissioner approval. All right, drug charges. These are pretty straightforward, which is why there's only a few of them. Controlled substance possession, possession of a controlled substance while armed. Look at this one. Weapons license suspension. So if they have possession of a controlled substance and they have a weapon on their body, you can revoke their weapons license with commissioner approval. Possession with intent to sell or distribute, sale of an illegal drug, manufacturing narcotics, and drug trafficking.
Are you calling grams each drug individual?
Correct. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, that was a good call out. What he just said is 20 grams or less in a way that would indicate use for sale or delivery. This is what we mean. 80 grams or more. It just means items. 80 items. More realistic. It's supposed to be grams, but they can't specify in the city script. So I'm calling it grams.
Okay.
Brandishing a firearm, carrying a firearm without a weapons license permit, neglect, discharge. Okay, so negligent discharge of firearm, that one's new. Assault with a deadly weapon, that's also new. So you can see some of these charges are very stackable, right? Not stackable meaning jail time, but in charging fine-wise. Assault with a deadly weapon would go easily with a first-degree murder charge or a involuntary manslaughter charge or something of that nature. Class A, Class B, Class C weapons. You have to pull up your penal code whenever you're charging with this because it defines which weapon is which. Until you're sure that that weapon is a Class B, you cannot charge them with that charge because they will take your ass to court and they will win if you're charging with a Class C when they had a Class A. This is a public document. Make sure you are sure that you're charging them with the correct one. We have it laid out here. if you find a weapon in the city that is not on the penal code, get with me as soon as possible. I can update it in 30 seconds. Okay. Look at your Class C. This is important too because certain people like to do piggy roasts in the city where they blow up gas stations for robberies, for gas station robberies. Anything that could be considered an explosive, because we don't have bombs in the city, right? But people utilize jerry cans as such, or they trail out gas to the gas pumps to make them explode. That can be classified as a Class C firearm. Okay, jerry cans that are used in the wrong way can be a Class C firearm. That's important. All right, general felonies: escaping from custody, robbery, armed robbery, bribery of a legal figure, fraud, larceny, grand larceny. These are important. It all depends on the value. You have to know the value. If you don't, then don't charge this fine. Okay. If you don't know how much that person stole the vehicle for and how much it's worth, do not charge with larceny or grand larceny. This is more so for like the jewelry store, right? You can tell the value of something. False impersonation, burglary, possession of burglary tools, tampering with evidence, destruction of public property, arson, aiding and abetting. This is another charge that has become very hot nowadays. Aiding and abetting a fugitive. Okay, it's now jail time. It's a general felony. All right, last but not least, serious felonies. These are mandatory jail. You don't see community service even as an option here. You have to send them to jail for serious felonies all the time. Attempted murder, first degree murder, second degree, involuntary, accessory to murder, kidnapping, bank, and store. If you don't know which one they committed, don't charge unless you have someone there to define, make sure that you're charging them correctly. If they did it and they willfully committed the murder and they had malice, they thought about doing it, so they planned it out, right? That's first degree murder, right? If they planned to kill somebody and they went ahead and killed them, that's first degree murder. Second degree is any intentional murder with malice, so they thought about it, but is not permitted or planned. All right, so if they thought about it, but they didn't plan it out, right? So second degree murder would be, give me a good example of second degree murder. So second degree murder would be if you were robbing a bank and a cop got shot, right? You didn't plan this out in the beginning to kill a cop, but the cop still died from your actions, right? Involuntary manslaughter is, for instance, you shoot your gun in the air and it comes down and kills somebody. That's involuntary manslaughter. You weren't intentionally meaning or knowing that that bullet was going to hit somebody, but you did it with a negligent manner. Okay, that's an involuntary manslaughter charge. So shooting your weapon without intention of killing somebody and actually killing them, involuntary manslaughter. Accessory to murder is exactly what it seems. Okay, this definition is pretty cut and dry. Kidnapping, bank robbery, store robbery. Notice how in your F6 menu you'll have double of these because one's for LEO and one's for civilian. All right, did I miss anything?
Can you clarify the 35 months with murder and max time?
Yes. So max time, 35 months with commissioner approval, 30 months if you're charging first degree murder of an LEO or for a civ by yourself, it would be 30 months. 35 because if they're killing cops or whatever left and right, typically the commissioners will have to get involved, and it wouldn't even really be 35 at that point. If they've done it and we consider it a heinous crime, it would be 140 CS max time, which is like a life sentence in this city. Questions or concerns about the penal code? What's your feedback on it? Anybody?
So if 30s are max, so how do you get? Let's say you do secondary murder, bank robbery, blah blah blah, kidnapping. You're still at 30, right?
Yeah.
So our typical bank charges would just everything's 30 months, obviously.
Correct. Does it
So
say bank charges? So your bank robbery 15, but you're saying kidnapping, so 15, 20, and then fleeing to elude would be 25.
Right.
So
And then
your
I was
bank,
saying
if somebody robbed the
if you have
right.
a murder, it's literally you're maxed,
Oh yeah,
right? Like
yeah, you're
nothing else
maxed. I
matters.
mean,
You're just adding
yeah,
charges
yep.
for the
All I
sake
want
of
you to do,
okay.
all I want you to do is make sure that you understand the definition of what you're going to charge them with before you charge them. Pull it up. If you're reading the definition and you don't know, get somebody involved, get the legal team involved before you sentence them, because you need to make sure you're sure it's first, second, or involuntary before you make that charge. Almost 80% of every murder in this city is first degree. Just saying. But there are instances in which second degree would play a part, which is why the fines are significantly less. Because if somebody was a part of something, if they were just an accessory to the crime, they shouldn't have to pay for the same price of their friend that actually pulled the trigger and wanted to kill the cop, right? They would pay about $11,000 less than their friend who would be paying 26,000. They also would serve 20 months instead of 35. That's the important factor here, is it's not one shoe fits all. It's more friendly for the public in the manner of, if they weren't necessarily the one that they didn't want it to go out the way that it did, but their friend did it anyways. Before, Pineapple LSPD would say, nope, you were there, screw you, you still shot at the officer, charge murder of an LEO, right? And we would do 3 or 4 or 5, whatever. But this is very clear. If they weren't there, or if they didn't physically do it, but they were there and taking place and they conspired to do it, it's an accessory to the murder, not the murder. Okay.
Okay.